Hello there, welcome to my channel. My name's Bryan Lomax and this is my review of Robocop 2, the sequel to the Paul Verhoeven classic. As you can tell from that opening, I wasn't that big on the original Robocop. I have reviewed it on my channel. I thought it was good, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's definitely one of those films that I think nostalgia plays a factor in if you like it. But I don't think it's aged all that well, personally. I know a lot of people disagree with that. I'm coming into this sequel with very little expectations. Before I watched it for this review, I did remember thinking it was terrible. I thought the first one was really good as a kid, not as much as an adult. But I remember seeing this sequel a few years later on TV at my uncle's house and thinking, oh, that's horrible. I remember finding this kid character in it really super annoying. That was one of my standout memories. I hated him as a villain. I just thought, yeah, why? I watched it again for the sake of this review, and I gotta say, it's a lot better than I remember it being. Is it on par with the first one? Again, bear in mind, I'm not that big on the first one. No, marginally though. I'd say the difference is marginal. I think where this one falls down compared to the first one, primarily is the story isn't quite as tight. There's a few saggy bits where you think, they could have brought some of those elements together a bit better. Because of that, it's a bit lower than the first one. But as a solid sequel to a beloved movie, I think it does pretty well. I think it still has whatever charm the first movie had. I think you can apply it here. You know, you got the silly ads that are interspersed throughout that kind of take pot shots at the culture and, like a really kind of hard-nosed look at where we're heading with regards to our future. You got funny adverts like the woman who puts the sunblock 5000 on. That stuff amuses me. I'm sure there'll be people saying, but it's not as clever as the stuff Paul Verhoeven did. It all feels very samey to me, to be honest. I think Verhoeven shot his movie a bit better, a nicer look to it, I think. A bit more shadow, a bit more dark edges, whereas this one, everything's kind of brightly lit. A lot of it's shot in broad daylight. It's not quite as edgy in that regard. But it maintains the violence, it maintains the pot shots, a consumerist culture, a corporate culture. Robocop is doing what you want Robocop to do for the most part, and it's got another big robot in it that he goes toe-to-toe with. The final act of the film, I think, is much more entertaining than I remember it being. So you've got Robocop 2, they create this robot using this killer gangster type figure played by Tom Noonan. So he's the big bad in this one. For the most part, he takes over the Clarence Boddicker role. He's not as good. That's no offence to Tom Noonan, because Tom Noonan's a great actor. But I think he's better at playing the creepy weirdo type of villain, the loner. This is more like your cult leader, gangster type, and it doesn't quite fit for me. You've still got the corporate douchebag villains as well. They're pretty funny throughout the movie, as there's a lot of kind of politics going on as OCP are trying to take over Detroit, and the mayor is trying to stop them and keep power, and so all that stuff's going on. So Gabriel Damon, who plays Hobbs. So this is the kid I was talking about who really annoyed me as a kid when I was watching it, because I was just like, what a snot-nosed punk. You see things differently as a kid, I think. You look through different lenses when you're a kid as you do when you're an adult. I watch him in this now and I think, he's pretty decent, actually. His death scene towards the end is not played very well, but I think that's all to do with the way it's directed and the way it's written more than it is the performance, to be honest. Irvin Kershner, best thing on his CV, obviously, is Empire Strikes Back. Not done much else of note, really. He's not a top-tier director at the end of the day. If that scene had been better directed, he'd have given a better performance in that death sequence. However, as I say, throughout the rest of the film, I didn't find him annoying at all in the way that I did as a youth. He's a snot-nosed punk, but in the way that he's meant to be. You know, I remember being back. Obviously, I was a kid in the 80s and teenager in the 90s. I remember lots of talk in the media of, you know, the problem with youth today and violent culture. There was a lot of fear about, you know, youth getting out of control. A lot of stories hitting the news and stuff. So, like, I see that this is what this kid represents. It is a product of its time in that sense. But no, I think the guy's pretty good as a villain, pretty solid. Peter Weller and Nancy Allen return in their roles from the first film, obviously as Robocop and his partner, and they are just as effective as they were in the first film. I don't rate them as actors particularly all that well. I feel like Weller's physical performance in this one is even worse than it was in the first one. I think his movements are even more exaggerated and it looks a bit darky, I think is the best word to describe it. Robocop looks extremely darky in this. And Nancy Allen, as I said in my review for the first one, she acquits herself well enough. You know, it's just she's never really done anything performance-wise that's made me go, wow, incredible actress. She's just kind of serviceable, really. She's not bad, she's just not great either. One of my comments, again, with the first film was the score I found to be overly intrusive. I think there are some memorable moments in the score of the first film, but even so, it was a bit hokey. It was a bit like in your face all the time. It just seemed to pop up at every moment, and it didn't quite match sometimes the scenes that were actually playing out. Whereas here, Leonard Rosenman, I think his name is, who composed the music for this film, I preferred it. I didn't notice it, that's the thing. I noticed, like, from time to time, little bits of the score from the first film kind of creeping in, or elements that sounded like it at any rate. But it never felt intrusive. It never felt inappropriate to what was playing out on screen. Comic book aficionados would be interested to note that this film is written by none other than Frank Miller. One of the greatest comic book writers of all time. He certainly wrote one of my favourite comic book stories of all time in Batman Year One. He's also joined by Waylon Green on the script. It's Miller's story, and him and Green wrote the screenplay. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of the film, which I feel like they don't develop quite enough or they don't follow through on, is the aspect with Robocop's wife. So at the beginning of the film, we see Robocop he keeps going to his old house. He's having memories, obviously, of his family. And he goes to the house, and it's upsetting the wife because she knows that her husband is in there somewhere, and she wants to know, is it still him, or is he just purely robot? And OCP is saying, look, you've got to cut ties. You're not a man anymore. You are just a robot. You're a machine. And so there's this struggle there between, am I a man? Am I a machine? And I think in one way they deal with that by the end of the film, in the sense that we do get a clear-cut, you know, kind of sense that he's chosen to be a man. He's broken free of his prime directives. The way in which he does that is a bit, oh, all right, that was an easy choice then. You've got the power to make that. You know, you think about the laws of robotics from iRobot, where, you know, if they're programmed into him that he shouldn't really be able to break them, and yet he does. He just, oh, that's how I can get rid of the prime directives. So he electrocutes himself. Anyway, I just feel like one aspect of that kind of personal story that the film raises is handled, in the sense that, yes, he makes a clear choice. I choose to be a man. I'm not just a machine. But then the stuff with the wife is just dropped. The end of the film should be him turning up to the house. I think that's the note you end on. Instead, it's just like he lifts his gun and says, back to business, kind of thing, and off they go. It's an easy fix. It's a real easy fix, because you set up the stuff with the wife. You set up that question, am I just a machine or am I a man? And then you want that answering. That's his journey. That's his arc. And I feel like half of that arc gets handled. He says he's a man. But then I feel like at the end of the film, we should see him rocking back up to the house, knocking on the door, and just saying something, just even if it's just one line to his wife to let us know that, yeah, he's willing, he's trying to get back what he had. I think it's always harder to script a sequel than it is to do an origin story. You got to go somewhere that you've not been before, without repeating yourself. So yeah, but it's not, you know, they don't do a great job, but they don't embarrass themselves. I think it's okay. I think it's a solid sequel. To me, it's just business as usual. We're back for more. It's doing what the first one did, slightly different in some ways. It's a solid 3-star film for me. There you go. There's my thoughts on Robocop 2. But what do you think about the film? Please do leave your comments down in the comment section below. Click that thumbs up and the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Do check out my Patreon and membership programs to see what perks you can get for becoming a supporter of this channel. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, crack in.